Hello guys, gals, non-binary pals, and waterfowls. It's me, Big Mike, and it's time for another round of updates to the David Grusch UAP UFO whistleblower story. Things have heated up, fam, and I'm not just talking about the July heat either. Things have heated up in Washington, D.C. over this situation. Today we have 3 stories to cover, all 3 dealing with what Congress is doing in regards to this situation. In this video, we're going to be discussing Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and his introduction of Legislature to declassify all government records related to UAPs or UFOs. Then we're going to be looking at Representative Tim Burchett's amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2024. And finally, fam, the House hearing on UAPs finally gets a date set. Before we get into the first news story, I just want to bring up a couple of things. First, I'm going to be handling this video a little different from my previous videos. So in most of my previous videos on this subject, I gave you the news stories, and then after I gave you all the stories, I gave you my thoughts on them. However, with this one, I'm just going to take it on a story-by-story basis. So once I'm done with one story, I'll give you my thoughts if I have any to share, and then after that, we'll move on to the next one. And secondly, because all of these stories are related to politics, I just want to throw up a quick disclaimer. Just because I mention or discuss a politician here does not mean I agree, condone, support, or endorse their politics, or opinions, or views. The same is true for any political party I may mention. I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Libertarian, and I'm not a member of the Green Party. I just identify as a partyless leftist. With that being said, however, my channel's not a political channel, so my politics shouldn't really matter here. And with that out of the way, let's jump into it. In our first news story of the day, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer introduces Legislature to declassify all government records related to UAPs or UFOs. Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader and a Democrat from New York, has said the measure will be an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act. It will be modeled after the JFK Assassination Records Collection Act. This amendment would impose a deadline of 300 days on government agencies to gather their records on UAPs and submit them to a review board. The review board would be made of 9 people who would both be appointed by President Biden and approved by the Senate. Staff members from the Senate have stated that the philosophy behind this is to choose people who would fight for disclosure while also being protective of sensitive methods of collecting intelligence. If Senator Schumer's legislation passes, the president would have the power to decide to postpone the material the commission has decided to release due to national security fears. Despite this, the bill would create a schedule to release documents and codify the presumption that the material should be public. Alison Biasotti, and please forgive me if I mispronounced that name, a spokeswoman for Senator Schumer, has remarked, "You now will have a process through which we will declassify this material." And that's pretty much it for that story. So here, fam, here are my thoughts on this particular story. Now, in my opinion, this is a bit of a mixed bag, but I'd say it's mostly positive. First, I like to point out just how significant this is. As we have seen previously in past videos when I covered this situation, Senator Schumer is not the first member of Congress to make waves in regards to the UAP or UFO situation. There have been many other senators, or a couple other senators I should say, like Senator Gillibrand and also Senator Mark Rubio. That being said, as a Senate Majority Leader, he has been by far the biggest elected official to take such measures, so his actions should carry much more weight. Secondly, the commission to release information about the Kennedy assassination had varying degrees of success. As of now, almost 60 years after Kennedy's assassination, there are still a lot of documents that have yet to be released. Though there has been a ton of information that was released because of this commission as well. Now, to be sure, just because this new commission will be modeled after the JFK Assassination Commission does not necessarily mean it would have the same problem, or even the same successes. But it does raise some concerns for me. Only time will tell, I suppose. And let's move on to the next story. Our next story is Representative Tim Burchett's amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2024. Now, in this story, because we're going to be breaking down a document, I'm not going to save my thoughts for the end, but I'm going to kind of give them as we break the document down, if I have anything to say. Representative Tim Burchett's amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2024, which would lead to the declassification of a great deal of public UAP sightings, has passed and has become part of the NDAA. Representative Burchett explained in a tweet, "My UAP amendment will be included in the NDAA. My amendment requires the Department of Defense to declassify any documents and records relating to publicly known sightings of UAPs that do not compromise the national security of the United States. However, it's worth noting that his original amendment was not passed as is, but underwent some revisions, but the revised version was passed without debate. Some of these modifications have drastically altered and restricted the original. For example, the original opening reads, "In general, not later than 180 days after the date of enactment of this Act, the Secretary of Defense shall declassify any documents and other records in the possession of the Department of Defense relating to publicly known sightings of unidentified aerial phenomenon." While the new opening reads, "In general, not later than 180 days after the date of the enactment of this Act, the Secretary of Defense shall declassify any Department of Defense documents and other Department of Defense records relating to publicly known sightings of unidentified aerial phenomena." So there are a couple things here I want to point out. Now, the wording here is a little iffy. At the strictest level of interpretation, this would only refer to documents. So no photos, no videos, no audios. Maybe those things can be counted as records, or maybe not, depending on how strict they are. But this would definitely not include anything physical, such as a piece of wreckage, should such a thing exist. Furthermore, this would exclude any other documents they may have in their possession, say from a contractor or non-DoD entity working with them. Now, maybe I'm a bit too tinfoil hat-ish on this situation, but I feel like this is a weakness that could be really exploited. So if there was something there, it could just simply be said, hey, this isn't our document. This belongs to this contractor or this other non-DoD government agency. So therefore, we don't have to submit this. So yeah, fam, I am not a big fan at all of that change. Another major change from the original is the section that deals with publicly known sightings of unidentified aerial phenomenon. The original read, "A sighting of an unidentified aerial phenomenon about which there is information available in the public domain prior to the declassification of documents and records required under subsection A." While the revision reads, "A sighting of an unidentified aerial phenomenon about which there is information available in the public domain prior to the declassification of documents and records required under subsection A, but does not include United States government information that was an unauthorized public disclosure." The meaning of publicly known sighting of unidentified aerial phenomenon has become much more strict. It has been pointed out that this new definition includes a clause that reads, "but does not include United States government information that was an unauthorized public disclosure," which means if there were previously any leaks of legitimate UAP-related information, these would be excluded. And I feel like this is another major weakness here. What constitutes an unauthorized leak? Could it be the stuff that David Grusch talked about? Could it be anything that happened prior to that? This is another major weakness, and I can't help but feel like it could be possibly exploited to keep information back. The final major change includes an entirely new portion called the Rule of Construction. The Rule of Construction reads, "Rule of Construction. Nothing in this section shall require the Secretary of Defense to declassify any information that the Secretary does not already have the authority to declassify under Executive Order 13526 or any successor order." This final modification stipulates that the Secretary of Defense does not have to declassify anything it does not have the authority to do so. So what could they have that they don't have the authority over? And if they don't have the authority, then who does? I don't have an answer for those questions, but if you do, please comment below and let me know what you think. Alright, and let's move on to our next story. And fam, our final story for the day is that the House hearing date is set for July the 26th. So just a small disclaimer here before we get into the details. There was only one site reporting this, askapol.com. But they make that claim with an audio excerpt from Representative Anna Paulina Luna herself. So please keep that in mind as you listen to this story. The final story for the day, as the title suggests, is the House's hearing on UAPs. It's set for Wednesday, July the 26th. Representative Anna Paulina Luna, a Republican from Florida, told Ask a Poll, yep, we got the hearing, so we got the hearing date confirmed. We'll be releasing the names about a week prior. July the 26th is the last week Congress is in session before lawmakers are scheduled to leave Washington for the entire month of August. One way or another, Representative Burchett says, they're holding a hearing. He goes on to say, if they don't give us a hearing like we want, I'll just do a field hearing and do it myself. Representative Burchett's remarks come after the hearing has hit some roadblocks. Both Representative Luna and her co-chair for the hearing, Representative Burchett, have gotten pressure from the Pentagon and NASA since announcing their formal investigation into UFOs. People familiar with the planning for the hearing confirm NASA has stopped cooperating, while at the end of June, Oversight Committee Chair James Comer told Ask a Paul at least 2 witnesses didn't pass his investigator's political background check. We had to reshuffle the deck on a few witnesses because of some issues, Comer said. I'm not really sure what to make of this, to be honest with you, fam. But I will say I do admire the fact that they're persevering through this and are going to see it through, or are going to attempt to see it through. And I'll be eagerly waiting for July 26th to see if anything comes of this, or if anything does come from this, will the public be able to know about this? As I've said in the past when talking about this congressional hearing, I'm not sure if the hearing will actually find out anything, and if it does, will we ever know about it? Will it be open to the public? I don't know, fam, but I am looking forward to the 26th to see if anything comes of this. And that's really all I have for this story. And before we close this video out properly, I just want to point out that this is in fact a series now on my channel. I'm still trying to think of a name for it. I haven't come up with anything yet, so if you have a good idea for the name, please comment below and tell me. I am very much open to suggestions. However, keep in mind, right now the focus tends to be on David Grusch and the whole Congressional thing. However, I want to expand this series beyond that. Like, I wanted to cover other related areas of aliens, UAPs, UFOs, that type of thing. And actually, in this video, I wanted to bring up a story, a non-related story about how a recent study has found that the possibility of finding water and perhaps life on other planets has increased. But with these 3 stories that I talked about today, I already felt like this video was long enough. So maybe I'll save it for next week. But just kind of keep in mind that if you suggest a name, that this isn't always going to be about David Grusch or this current situation, because there will come a time, some point in time, when all this stuff settles down. And I still would like to talk about the subject. So if you'd like to suggest a name for this series, just kind of keep that in mind. And with that, I will cut it out here, fam. Special thanks to Fran, who does a wonderful job of doing my art. She's back on Twitter, so please give her a follow. A special thanks to all my friends on Twitter. I wouldn't be here without you all. And most importantly, a special thank you to all of you for watching. Please like this video if you liked it. Dislike it if you dislike it. Feel free to comment below and let me know what you think. And if you like my content, please subscribe and turn your notifications on. Until next time, fam, remember, just be yourself and you'll be awesome. Peace out!